Welcome to the Author Showcase Meetup Club here at the Roots Room. And today we have a number of people that are going to be talking about some books that they've read. And we've got an author with us today who is Eileen Ladin-Panzer, who's going to be talking about her new book, A Life Less Lived. And so that's going to be our program for tonight.
It's about growing up in the 1940s and 1950s in an immigrant Jewish family. So as a Chicago native, there's quite a bit about Chicago in there. And there's some very serious things. Among them are mental illness and talk about luck, morality, fate, and there's a very large discussion, which to me is central to the book, and that takes place around the Passover Seder table. And I think everybody knows, but the Seder is the yearly celebration of the Jewish people's release from bondage in Egypt. And so this talk takes place around the table. And the first thing that I'm going to read is talk about luck. And Abe, who is the father in the story, this is what he says about it. Some guys, they work all the time, all their lives, and what do they have in the end? Nothing. Gross. A guy like him, no matter what pile he falls into, he comes out smelling sweet. Luck, that's what it is. All this fancy talk about God and limits and all that junk, it don't mean nothing. What's God ever do for anybody? People believe in God, so what? God don't help. Believing in God is all right, but what's God going to do? A guy has luck or not, that's all. God don't make anybody's luck. Stupid talk. Religion and expecting things from it and paying rabbis and marking the same stuff kosher for Passover. And then his sister-in-law, Karen, who's also one of the participants, here's what she says about luck. To a large extent, people make their own luck. You have to fight to get what you want, and you can't let anything stand in your way. Yes, but there's an element of luck, of timing involved in things. You can twist them and shake them if you're strong enough to do it. My father believed that, and he came from Poland and was very successful here, and I believe it too. And another participant is Leonard, who is an attorney, and he's at the Seder. And he's talking about right and wrong. And he says, I don't think that anyone, except for a psychopath or somebody who has lost contact with reality, really does anything he knows is wrong. Oh, an individual may philosophize about no holds barred and even practice what he preaches. But once that person admits that the particular action in which he's involved is wrong, he must change the action or never do it again. At any rate, feel terrible repentance, the kind that's a burden for always. And Rebecca, who is the mother in the story, who does suffer from mental illness, she says about fate, I think, excuse me, this is all silly talk. Whatever is meant to be is going to happen. Nothing people do will change it. Good or bad, was is beshared. What will be, will be. I'm sorry to talk Yiddish, Karen, but Yiddish says things exactly better than English because there are not so many words in Yiddish to say what you mean. Anyhow, what is meant for a person, that's what will be. And this is not just the luck like Abe always talks about, because luck means everything is blind, without a plan. It's like if you stand by two doors and it's your luck to open one instead of the other, then you take what happens because of the door you open. You might open the other door too, and then something else would happen. This is what Abe means when he talks about luck. His luck is without a plan. This I do not believe. God has planned everything out for us, and we have what he wants for us, and he has reasons. It is not for us to sit and figure it out. We just take what is. And I would like to read a little bit about Chicago history. Evelyn, who's a child in the story is sent to the corner store to buy a couple of things, and the corner mom and pop store is what there was in those days, and most people shop daily or every other day for what they needed. And her mother has told her that President Roosevelt has just died. And she says, and she's thinking about it, and she says on impulse, she turned to one of the waiting people. Roosevelt is dead. I know, Evie, I heard it on the radio. It's terrible. Yeah, he was a good man for the people. Why did he have to die? Can we win the war now? Everybody dies. He had a hard job. He couldn't take it no more. We'll win the war. You'll see. We're right. That Hitler, the bloodsucker. At the thought of Hitler, the voice of the woman trailed off. Her thoughts were of the family left behind in Poland, as a suppressed wonder of Hitler's mad boldness rose to the top of her mind. She wondered in a flickering instant if the concentration camp stories were true. No, they were not, she told herself firmly. They could not be. But who will be president now? The thought on Evelyn's mind found word. From the time of her birth, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had been president, and she felt him to be on the same plane as a constitutional monarch. She had known no other and could conceive no other. But the woman was no longer listening. Her return to the real world was complete and final. Is there anybody here as a Chicago native who doesn't have a Marshall Field story? I think everybody probably does. Well, Evelyn is now a young woman, and she's just gotten married at City Hall, and they are having a celebration luncheon at Marshall Field. We're going to have lunch in the Walnut Room, Sean announced. Oh, I love that restaurant. I had lunch there once. It was wonderful. The escalator took them to the 7th floor, and they stepped into a lush walnut-paneled room. A smiling hostess seated them at a table near the fountain because it was early and the room was still fairly empty. A waiter arrived at the table as soon as they were seated, handing them menus. He was followed by a busboy who filled their glasses with water. Evelyn did not even scan the menu, but looked to Sean for help with ordering. Sean perused it briefly. The waiter soon returned. I'll have a Windy City, Evelyn said. I'll have the chicken pot pie, Sean said. The portly white apron waiter shook his head affirmatively. Good choices. What's a Windy City? It's wonderful. Chicken over lettuce covered with cheese and Thousand Island dressing. Yummy, Evelyn answered. Sounds good, but I always have the chicken pot pie. They're famous for it. When the food came, the only sound that could be heard was Evelyn and Sean eating their food with relish. We're going to have a special treat for dessert. I love the Frango mint chocolate ice cream pie, Sean announced. Sounds decadent. I know that Marshall Field is famous for that candy, but it should be wonderful in a chocolate cream pie, no less. It is decadent, but this is a special day, so we're ordering it. And I'll read you one more thing. And this is about how the neighborhood changed on the West Side after World War II. It seemed that there was almost a pattern to the way the neighborhood was changing. As yet the change was confined to a few blocks, but there was a coherence, a puzzle taking shape. Negroes bought in the middle of the block. The people and the buildings on either side moved. Other Negroes bought those buildings. The people on either side moved. And so it went until there were no Caucasians left on that block. The first tenants in the middle of the block tended to be middle-class northern Negroes, possibly teachers, postal workers, perhaps even doctors or lawyers. That was true of the next few buildings. By the time there were only a few dwellings left, the tenants who moved in were fresh from the South. The manner of some of these people was insouciant, their carefree, easygoing way of life foreign, and their thick, slurred Southern speech strange-sounding. The entrenchment of Negroes into this neighborhood was slight, and as yet limited to a few short city blocks. But they were noticed, and the Jews who sold their property to move to more elegant, prosperous neighborhoods on the north side were bitterly reviled by those who remained. Chicago was a port of entry right there after World War II because the African Americans, and I'm calling them Negroes because that was politically correct at that time. They came in search of jobs up north. The story has elements of autobiography, but I played so hard and fast with the facts that it's fiction. It's not a memoir. The setting is real, and the problems are real. Well, the book is in a couple of independent bookstores. It's at the Holocaust Museum. It is available on Kindle, and my website is Eileen Ladin-Panzer.com.
Again, thanks to Eileen Ladin-Panzer, and it's a life less lived, and that's what it looks like.